They say that all records are meant to be broken. Over time, someone has to succeed or surpass anything that was done in history. No record, whether it be sports related or not, should last forever. But there are a lot of world records that are damn near impossible to beat and have remained intact for decades, if not centuries. And the same is true in the game of basketball. There are records that are so far out of reach that it makes you wonder if they will ever be broken, and it's what we're going to be talking about in today's video, those records that will likely never be broken in NBA history. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy this type of content, feel free to subscribe, as about 90% of you watching are not subscribed, and in return I'll be providing more NBA content like this all season long. When LeBron James passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the all-time scoring list earlier this season, it was viewed as this incredible feat and a record that for decades was thought to never be broken. To possess the scoring prowess and longevity over the course of one's career, to reach over 38,000 points, especially in today's NBA of load management and players taking games off just because they feel like it. And while most people would disagree, I firmly believe that LeBron's newly set record for the all-time scoring list, which is still ongoing since LeBron hasn't retired, will in fact never be broken. And I made an entire video explaining why, so I won't reiterate that here, but I'll leave a link to that video in the description in case you missed it. But aside from the all-time scoring record, here are records that will likely never be broken. Wilt Chamberlain's record for most points in a game at 100 points. Now, there has been growing debate more recently with the rise in NBA offense and scoring and whether this record actually could be broken, while just a few years ago it was seen as a fat chance for a player to even hit 100 points in a game. The fact is, just this season alone, we've seen two players put up over 70 points, which prior to that hadn't been done since Kobe Bryant's insane 81-point game back in 2006 against the Toronto Raptors. Only 7 players in the NBA history have scored more than 70 points in a game, and 2 of them happen to be from this season in Donovan Mitchell and Damian Lillard. But as insane as scoring has gotten in the NBA, especially with the rise of the three-point shot, surpassing a feat of 100 points is just insurmountable. The game has changed drastically since the days of Wilt Chamberlain, and one of those being the overall talent pool across the NBA. Wilt Chamberlain dominated the NBA back in his day because he was just so much better than everyone in the league at that time. It also helped that there was no 3 seconds in the key during his era. But in today's NBA, the players on the court are too skilled and too talented to let one player wreak havoc and go on an insane scoring tear to put up over 100 points in a game. And it's not just the opposing team that wouldn't allow a player to score 100 points on them. The team for which the player is on wouldn't allow this to happen as well. At the end of the day, basketball is still a team sport and much more team-oriented than the days when it was just a handful of big men who dominated the league back in the 1960s. And while Lillard and Donovan Mitchell's 71-point outbursts were mind-boggling to watch, they still needed 30 additional points to break Wilt's 100-point game record. As if 71 wasn't hard enough to get to, Donovan Mitchell also needed an overtime to get there. Both of these players were still near a third of the way in passing Wilt Chamberlain's record. That is just insane. Now sure, there could be instances where a player just goes berserk and erupts for 50 plus points in the first half. I could see where team basketball goes out the window and the team does whatever they can to get said player as many shots as possible to break the record, but barring that, or in a game that goes into quadruple overtime, I can't see this record ever be broken. Kind of related to Wilt's 100-point single game record, obviously that was the season in which he averaged 50.4 points per game, which will literally never happen again in the NBA. Like, even if somehow some player puts up over 100 points in a single game, there is absolutely no chance we would see a player average more than 50 points per game in a regular season. MJ, even in his best season in terms of scoring, averaged a little over 37 points per game in 1987, and the only player that has come close to that more recently is James Harden, who averaged a little over 36 points per game in 2019, which even then at that time was seen as insane because averaging over 30 points per game in the NBA is something only 4 players in NBA history have ever been able to do. The next record that will never be broken also happens to be another Wilt Chamberlain record, and that's the all-time rebounding record set by Wilt at 23,924 total rebounds for his career. For context, Wilt has over 2,000 more rebounds than the player in second, which of course is Bill Russell, and over 6,000 more rebounds than the player in third, who was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who played in over 1,500 games throughout his career, which is the second most games played in NBA history. Even some of the most dominant rebounders in Elvin Hayes, Moses Malone, Dennis Rodman, Tim Duncan, Karl Malone don't even come close to the mark that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar hit. And Wilt had over 6,000 more rebounds than Kareem. The leading active player in the NBA with the highest number of total rebounds is currently LeBron James, who has a little over 10,600 rebounds. That's less than half the number of rebounds Wilt was able to amass throughout his career. No, this record will never be broken. And a big reason for why it will never be broken is due to the fact that the rules have changed in the NBA. In Wilt and Bill Russell's day, there was no 3 seconds in the key. Big men could cherry pick and hang out in the paint as long as they wanted, making it easier to snag rebounds and even score for that matter. And in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's day, there was no defensive 3 seconds in the key, meaning the center on defense could hang out in the key while the player on offense was limited in their ability to stay put in the paint. The same can also be said for Elvin Hayes and Moses Malone, all of these players in the top 5 on the all-time rebounding list. The next record that will likely never be broken is John Stockton's career assist number. Stockton finished his career tallying 15,806 assists, while the guy in second, being Jason Kidd, was over 3,000 assists shy of reaching Stockton. Chris Paul currently sits in third with 4,000 assists less than John Stockton, and Chris Paul is 37 years old, soon to be 38. LeBron is fourth on the list, who has even 1,000 less than Chris Paul himself, and he's already 38 in his 20th season in the league. You also have to consider the fact that true pass-first point guards aren't seen as often in the NBA as they used to. Yes, we have great high IQ passing guards with impeccable court vision in the NBA, but there are also high scoring point guards in addition to their passing. For context, Stockton has the record for most assists per game in a regular season when he averaged 14.5 assists per game in the 1989-90 season. 14.5. So far this season, James Harden is currently leading the league in assists per game at 10.8. No player has been able to average more than 12 assists per game since 1995, when, you guessed it, was done by John Stockton. Thus, Stockton's assist total combined with his very long career and number of games played will never be broken. The next on this list, which might seem a bit odd, but it's actually Michael Jordan's record for most 2-point field goals scored in a game at 26 made twos. Now, Anthony Davis came close to that mark in 2016 when he put in 22 2-point field goals, and then in 2017 LeBron James put in 21. So you're probably asking, why would this record never be broken when players of today have come fairly close to it? Well, as I'm sure most of you are aware, the NBA has steadily evolved into a 3-point shooting league, and this has accelerated even further in the past 3 to 4 seasons, so much so that to score a heavy amount of 2-pointers, even if it's in the paint, is a thing of the past. This season, Giannis hit a crazy feat of 20 2-point field goals scored, and that remains the only player this season to actually reach that mark. And yet, he was still 6 2-point field goals away from even tying Michael Jordan's game record for most 2-point field goals. Another record that will never be broken is actually a team record, and that's when the Golden State Warriors won 73 games in a single season. Now, as a Bulls fan, we always laugh at that record because unlike the Bulls, who won 72 and maintained that record for 2 decades, the Warriors were not able to secure a championship in that 73-win season. But be that as it may, they still won 73 games and hold on to the record, a record that will never be broken for these reasons. One, the NBA has much greater parity than it ever did before. Any team can win on another on any given night. Second, teams nowadays, especially after seeing what happened to the Warriors in that 73-9 season, know that the regular season is a grind, and there is no use in winning 70-plus games in a regular season if the players are going to be gassed come playoff time. In this day of the NBA with load management, teams resting their best players towards the end of the season after playoff seeding is a little bit established, the days of teams running through the league and winning over 70 games just won't happen anymore, not to mention the fact that even super teams are becoming a thing of the past that would otherwise propel a team to 74 wins in a regular season. That's the other thing, losing 8 games all season. I don't care how much talent you have, it's just not going to happen in the NBA. Now, there are other crazy records in the NBA that will be challenging to break, but I see these much more plausible, like Russell Westbrook's record for 42 triple-doubles in a regular season, or breaking Steph Curry's record for most career three-pointers, especially since that record is still ongoing. But with more and more players taking threes, kids growing up and focusing on their outside game, given it's a focal point of the way offense is played in basketball now, I can easily see that record being broken in the future. Hell, James Harden isn't even that far off from Steph's total, and Harden is also 2 years younger than him. Luka at his age could well surpass Steph as well. Or things like Kendall Gill's record for 11 steals in a single game, or Shaq's record for most blocks in a game at 15. Yes, records that will probably stand for some time, but I'm sure will be broken eventually in the future. But you let me know if there were records I missed that you think will never be broken again in the NBA, or maybe you think no record is safe. Either way, let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.